Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight-up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. Wargaming is at it again with something a little different from their usual formula. Instead of bashing historically significant tanks and ships together, well, this one, you're gonna bash mechs together. Now, keeping in mind, mechs are not real. They cannot be historically significant. That's the main reason these mechs are not historically significant. Anyway, we're looking at Steel Hunters. And I gotta say, this game makes a great first impression. Caveat, once you get past the day one server issues, that is a problem. We'll talk about it, but I mean, there's a lot to like about this game. It's really impressive graphically speaking. The combat is appropriately heavy and it's really hard hitting, and the environmental destruction, holy hell, it's like people listen to this channel. They actually are starting to give us environmental destruction in games again. It's actually the best we've seen in a while here. I dare say the best since the finals, which has stood alone for quite a while. But that's kind of all you got there. You spend a few hours with it, you experience all that stuff, and it's hard not to ask, that's it? Unfortunately, in the game's current early access state, there's just not much to it. It's a great concept. I love the concept of Steel Hunters. And, it's one of those games I just really want to like. And maybe eventually will be the game that I feel like it could be as I'm playing it. But there's, at the moment, just not enough. Also, unfortunately, the one and only game mode they currently have isn't that great either. This is not a total dud. I want to be clear. It is not a total dud. It's just it's missing a central hook. Something that, like a really engaging game mode or something. Like something that makes a multiplayer game like this really sing. Everything about the game feels actually fantastic to play, but feel is only part of it, It's got a lot of problems. Might sound dire, but I want to be clear, there's a lot to enjoy here. Yeah, it's that kind of Before You Buy, the one where you're not really sure whether or not I like the game. I really do like the game. I just want it to, be good. All the pieces are there, all the parts. There's just nothing to hold. It's not being held together very well yet. Hopefully it will. Let's get into it. So what even is Steel Hunters? It's a mech game crossed the battle royale / extraction shooter, which sounds like a lot. Kind of is. 6 teams of 2 drop into one of currently 3 available maps to run around, complete objectives, gather loot, and then extract at the end of the match. Basically, the only kind of actual match type there is right now is Last Stand PvP. There is a PvE mode, but it's just the same mode where you take on AI instead of players. It's not as good as with other players as you expect it to be. So you pick your mech, you work together with a partner, and survive until the end. It's a solid base in theory, and parts of it do work. I like how short each match generally is. They tend to run about 10 minutes, so each match doesn't drag on too long, at least in terms of time. When you're actually playing these things, they start to get kind of boring after a while because of how limited the game mode actually is. But before I get into any serious complaints with the game design, I really do want to give some praise to the stuff I enjoy. The mech designs, I like them. They're great. Now, I will say, maybe it's a little limited. You only get 7 hunters to currently pick from. They have to be unlocked with one of the many currencies in the game called constructs, which you get from account progression, but at least it is pretty generous with the mech starting out. You pick any 2 you want, along with the base model right from the start, so you get access to a good chunk of the roster right at the beginning. The mechs are pretty interesting. The starting one is basically what you'd expect, but then there's some actually differently shaped robots here. Like, one has 4 legs, one looks like a walking tank. You got some more animalistic looking ones. It's a nice change of pace compared to what you would normally see in a mech game where every robot's just basically a human, but with that robot aesthetic, you got wildly different shapes and profiles, and that makes all of the machines stand out and feel unique. More games need to do that. These things essentially work like characters in a hero shooter, only, bigger and stompier. You have one gun that can be customized somewhat with mods that alter their effects, and you have 2 special abilities exclusive to each hunter. That's the way, and they're called hunters. I said hunters, I think, a couple of times. That's what the mechs are called. I think you probably inferred that, but just making it clear. I like how they feel to control. They're heavy and often slow. Some are slower than others, and they take a whole lot of punishment before going point down. The time to kill in this game, it's long. It's also rare you run into a situation where you're getting sniped out of nowhere or turning a corner and ending up dead. Firefights go on for a long time, and if you're cautious, it's easy to run away and lick your rooms if an encounter isn't going your way. Some might not like how relatively slow the combat in the game is. Like I said, I love the finals. It's a very twitchy, very fast-paced game, but I appreciate the speed, or maybe I should say lack thereof, in this game. It is faster and arcadier than something like, well, basically anything else in Wargaming's catalog, but it's not Call of Duty. It's much slower than Call of Duty. Stealth, it's not much of a thing in Steel Hunters, I will say. There are some mechs that temporarily turn invisible or blink teleport or something like that, but most of the time you're gonna know if another mech is nearby before the shooting starts, and that's something I legitimately do like about this game. In practice, it doesn't feel like a third-person shooter, but with some tiny scenery. They did put the effort to make it feel like you're piloting a mech with how everything controls. When you're actually in combat with other mechs, man, it is a lot of fun. The problem is everything else about it gets old fast. Okay? The biggest problem is that for a battle royale / extraction shooter, which are meant to be very free and open-ended, and you know, everybody can kind of be creative in how they accomplish the objective. All the matches in Steel Hunters feel pretty much the same. You drop in a random location, you shoot some boring drone enemies. They're no fun to fight at all. Like, I thought the ambient enemies would just be weaker mech enemies or tanks or something, but we get these floating targets that basically don't do anything. And they're just around to be sources of low-level loot and make the extraction feel a little more exciting, although arguable that that's accomplished. Almost every match starts and ends the same way, with you encountering one other team early on, and then only running into anyone else at the end of the match. Sometimes you barely even manage to do that, and the other team just disappears. It's got a serious 3 teams remaining problem, where half the teams get taken out right at the start. There's almost no chaotic 4-team encounters or surprise upsets. Just almost always one team fighting another in isolation. It leads to a whole lot of pretty stale games where you basically do the same thing over and over again. The ultimate outcome is decided by which team is able to collect the best loot, which is all just boring flat percentage upgrades or utility items like repair kits or ammo. It's not fun to collect loot in Steel Hunters. There's just nothing interesting about it. They're just generic balls that increase your health, or shields, or just make you do more damage. Like, ugh. You have to get this. You have to. Like, it's necessary. But it's so basic, it just feels like a chore after a while. Like, why am I wasting half the match running around grabbing loot? I'd rather be doing the actual fun part, you know, fighting with other mechs. The game has some amazing destruction physics, but you rarely get a chance to do anything with it. It's satisfying as hell the first time you smash through like a 2-story building like it's tissue paper, but you almost never get into fights in arenas where all this stuff is. Most of the time you're fighting in generic empty fields instead of the actually interesting locations with all the destructible stuff in them. That's just where the game puts all its objectives. I don't know why. Maybe it's to avoid slowdown by funneling all the fights into places with less complex geometry, but man, is it disappointing. I will say this. The game is mercifully currently free of microtransactions. Seriously, like, oh, there's a ton of currencies, honestly, way too many, needlessly confusing, but the stuff you'd assume to be funny money, called platinum, is entirely earned by playing the game. You can't buy it, at least not yet. You can't buy anything yet. I mean, they're definitely going to get microtransactions into this thing eventually. Look at every other game from Wargaming. We're not that stupid, guys. They're definitely going to go in on this stuff. The clues are everywhere. And there's a pro and a premium season pass. That's already sketchy enough, but right now they cost 10 and 20 platinum respectively, which could be easily obtained by just playing the game. But that's only because they're marked down from 4,000 to 8,000, which would be an absurd amount if you had to get that much by just playing matches. So of course, you're gonna be buying it. There's also this weird system where you get, quote, shards. I don't know why everybody's using the word shard. Like, they have to know how close it is to shard, right? They have to know that when I say the word shard in a sentence, it sounds like shart. I got a shard, guys. No, man, you don't ever have to shart. You should try to stop yourself and try to get to a bathroom. No, shard. Shard. Oh, cool. We wanted that. Sorry about that little interjection there, but yeah. You take your shards, you can convert them into what they're calling starfall, which can be used to level up your hunters without having to grind, which would be nice. You could get a lot of shards naturally, but you actually have to convert them by spending platinum. So basically there's an extra step in there. Makes it look like it's not blatantly pay to win, but that's what it is. At least once you're going to be able to buy stuff. Winning is on the table, boys. Let's negotiate a price. If leveling up your hunters just unlock new weapons and side upgrades or something, it probably wouldn't be a big deal. But higher level hunters are just better. You get linear upgrades that increase your shields. Mods that you unlock mostly just make the hunters better. So the higher level a mech is just going to outclass everybody lower level. So there you go. You're pay to win. You're just not on equal footing like in a proper battle royale. Nor does it have the risk-reward system of a proper extraction shooter. You're not going to lose all your mech upgrades when you die in Steel Hunters. There's like barely any punishment for dying, in fact. But actually, that's another thing I actually do appreciate about the game, the death mechanics. If you die in battle, you get a temporary boost to your teammate. It helps them out while you're spectating, assuming you want to spectate. And if they manage to survive for long enough, or they have a revive kit, they can bring you back to life to fight again. But with the coordinated team, it's easy to bounce back from death in Steel Hunters. It's just unforgiving enough that it makes dying feel like it means something, but generous enough that you don't feel like it's an instant game over if a teammate dies. It's a good system. And I want to reiterate, there is a lot of stuff about this game that I like. It is fun to play when you're actually engaging with other players. The controls they're good. They feel good. But even with how fast each match is, you still spend way too much time running around collecting uninteresting but vital loot and not actually fighting anything that puts up a fight. You're mostly just shooting drones and Steel Hunters, and it's so dull. And right now the game is pretty unstable too, at least for me. There were issues getting into the game for the first hour or two. It slowly went away as the day went on, but server errors did persist. The game would freeze at the end of a match. Something would happen right in the middle of the match. Always feels like it's got to be a server issue because I noticed my ping spike like crazy when the game would freeze. The issue isn't my internet connection either. I have a great internet connection. I have fiber internet. It's not on my end. I promise you that. But I was getting kicked out of the game a lot, and everything else about the game felt really polished. They didn't run the graphics bugs or glitches, but the freezing problems, which I really do think had to do with the servers, were consistently an issue. I do think the game has promise. I want to really emphasize that. This could be an incredibly good game. The bones of an incredibly good game are here, but there's just not enough meat on them bones. And sometimes playing this game, I feel so alone. Gonna end up a big old pile of them bones, I think. Gonna end up a big old pile of them bones. Ow! Dun, 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 dun. I mean, I was getting pretty bored after a few hours. Steel Hunters just needs more hunters to pick from, more maps, more game modes. They really need to work on having more encounters between more teams. The current mode it doesn't work that well. Either it needs heavily reworked or it needs to be changed altogether. It's this hybrid hero shooter with elements of extraction and battle royale, and none of it really quite gels. It's a great idea in theory, but the mode just straight up isn't that fun to play. The actual shooting is good. The hunters themselves are very cool looking, but without that one killer match type, it needs something that makes it, Steel Hunters. You can't get that anywhere else. It's not there yet. Now, I do think give it some time and it'll probably get better. I hope it gets better enough that the incoming microtransactions are offset by how much better the game gets. But all I know right now, Steel Hunters unfortunately doesn't quite live up to its promise. If you absolutely love smashing stuff with big mechs, give it a shot. You might get more out of it than I did. I'm not going to claim that it's bad. It could be very good, in fact, but it is going to be a hard sell for I think most people. There's a good game buried in there somewhere, but you got to get through a lot of boring repetition to get through the good stuff, and that is not how it should be. Multiplayer games rarely work as a slow burn. There's exceptions to that rule. Don't get me wrong, and I'm sure you'll tell me what they are in the comments, but most of the time, that's a problem. And it's a problem here. But what do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications, and as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter and book me on Cameo at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.